There have been times in recent seasons where Ottawa Senators fans have been kind of happy about seeing the Toronto Maple Leafs at the other end of the ice. Yeah, we're going to beat Toronto again, and yet this jersey when it was worn, this of course my Dion Phaneuf. I got this one for I think $30. The regular jersey, the plain jersey was 150, and then if you wanted it with Phaneuf on the back, it was $30 after he left Toronto. So I'm like, yeah, I'll take it. It's the jersey. But the funny thing is, this jersey, and I mean this logo, while it was never feared, have never made the Stanley Cup Finals. You know who feared it? Ottawa. Ottawa Senators. The early 2000s, we saw the Ottawa Senators play the Toronto Maple Leafs 4 times in 5 years. And this rivalry was fantastic. And I was a Sens fan the whole way. I had Sens gear ready to go. I was all excited. And then that just sums it up. So whenever people talk about the Battle of Ontario, and this is what it's called, it depends on which battle you're looking at. During the regular season, it favors Ottawa. 64-46, 3-10 is the overall record in favor of the Ottawa Senators. But in the playoffs, it's kind of Toronto. 16-8 for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Toronto will take that trade-off all day long. And really, it started with the first time they met each other in 2000. And you have Curtis Joseph against Tom Barrasso. Barrasso, a couple of Stanley Cup rings with Pittsburgh, and this was an Ottawa team that was looking for that kind of level of experience. They felt they were close to being a contender and maybe winning a Stanley Cup. So having Barrasso would help. He had a .905 save percentage in the series, which isn't horrible. But at the other end of the ice, you have Curtis Joseph. He had a .942 save percentage and a shutout. That's a problem. 17-10 was the final score for the Leafs when they won this one in 6 games. It's only 10 goals in 6 games. Alfredson had a goal and 3 assists. Radek Bonk had 0 points, and Marian Hossa had 0 points. How's that for SmackDown? On the other side, Steve Thomas had 6 goals, 2 assists for Toronto. Matt Sundin had 3 goals and 4 assists for the Leafs. And Ty Domi had the exact same number of points as Hossa and Bonk. And I'm sure if you told him at the start of the series, hey, Ty, you're going to get the same amount of points as Marian Hossa in a 6-game series, you would have been like, that sounds great. How many points am I going to get? You the man, Ty. Now, the next year, 2001, round 1 as well, Toronto made this one kind of anticlimactic. They outscored the Ottawa Senators 10-3. 10-3. This is where the jokes started for me. And as a Sens fan, I'm making jokes. Curtis Joseph, .976 save percentage, 2 shutouts. The other end of the ice, Patrick Lalime takes over as the starter. He's the goalie through the rest of the series. He had an .899 save percentage. Great mask, good goaltender, not elite level, and that was shown when Curtis Joseph came to town. And this was where I had a friend that I worked with, and we had an ongoing joke. And we got to revisit that joke 3 years later as well, which was we would pretend we were Ottawa Senators players being interviewed after the game and talking about how, we've got the next game and everything will be fine. And then as soon as the reporters ask about the goaltender, they just break down and cry. Because, they could not solve Curtis Joseph. .976 save percentage over 4 games. The Sens had a 1-0 lead in Game 4. That's the only lead they had in the entire series. That's it. And that was in the first period, and it didn't last. Hossa had a goal and 1 assist in this series. Alfredson had 1 goal. Wade Redden had no points. Now, on the Toronto side, Matt Sundin, 2 goals and 2 assists. Sergei Berezin had a goal and 3 assists. He enjoyed playing the Leafs. He had a good amount of points in that series as well. And Ty Domi, no points. So again, before the series, you could walk up to Ty and go, hey, you guys are going to do really well against the Ottawa Senators. You're going to get the exact same amount of points as Wade Redden in this series. Really? Last year I had the same amount as Hossa, and this year I'm going to have the same amount as Redden. The theme being, the Toronto Maple Leafs knew how to shut down Ottawa when they needed to. So the following season they meet in round 2. This is the first time they've met outside of round 1. Maybe this is the year. And at certain points in this series it looked like, this is Ottawa's turn. They're finally going to do it. And I remember saying to people during this series, it looks like Ottawa's finally going to defeat the Toronto Maple Leafs. Nope. Toronto wins it in 7. Joseph had a 917 save percentage with a shutout. Lalim had a 918 save percentage at his end of the rink. Now, what's interesting is, of course, Curtis Joseph, 4 shutouts in his 12 wins over the Ottawa Senators. A couple years from then, Belfour's going to say, that's nice. That's nice. Good for you. 18-16 was the score in this series in favor of Ottawa. So again, it looked like Ottawa had this under control, but Game 7 was a 3-0 shutout for the Toronto Maple Leafs. So it was like at the last minute, Toronto goes, oh, yeah, this is Ottawa. We got this. Alfredson had 4 goals and 3 assists, so his best series against Toronto out of the 4. Radek Bonk, 2 goals, 3 assists, and Marian Hossa, 2 goals and 3 assists for the Ottawa Senators, who just can't get over the hump. Because Toronto says no. They're saying no, we're not letting you over the hump. Battle of Ontario? Not really. So, Gary Roberts, 5 goals and 5 assists in this series. Alan McCauley, 3 goals, 4 assists. And Ty Domi had an assist in this series. Good job, Ty. I got to say, if you told him at the start of that series, hey, you're going to get more points than you got in the first and second meeting between these teams, probably would have hit you because he would have thought you were being sarcastic. Now, what's interesting is that in between 2002 and 2004, you have the 2003 playoffs. Toronto gets eliminated in the first round by the Philadelphia Flyers. The Ottawa Senators reached the conference finals in 2003. Now, it's a conversation I've had where I talked about Dallas and how Dallas couldn't beat Detroit. And it's true. Dallas could not beat Detroit. It doesn't mean that when a team does really well, that it doesn't mean that they didn't do. It just means there's certain teams they don't match up well with. And Ottawa didn't match up well with Toronto. So they go to the conference finals one year that they didn't have to meet them. And in Dallas's case, they went to a Stanley Cup final in 2000 when they didn't have to play Detroit. And they won a Stanley Cup in 99 when they didn't have to play Detroit. And Ottawa did better when they didn't have to worry about Toronto. 2007, they didn't have to play Toronto. They went all the way to the Stanley Cup finals. Toronto wasn't in the playoffs that year, but you still get the feeling if Toronto somehow gets in there and plays Ottawa, they would have gone, Ottawa, we know you guys. All right, never mind. Yeah, no, you're not going to the Stanley Cup final. No, we got this. Now, in 2004, the last year before the lockout, they meet again, and it's round 1 for the 3rd time. And again, it feels at certain points in this series like maybe, but Eddie the Eagle Belfour is the story of this series. 954 save percentage, 3 shutouts. That's why I'm saying, like, Joseph had 4 shutouts. That's nice. I'll get 3 in a year, Belfour says. Lalima, 906 save percentage. So the way this series worked was simple, and this is where the post-game interview thing that I was doing with my coworker came right back, where it was, oh, you guys did pretty well tonight. Yeah, no, we had a good game. How about that Belfour? And then they would break down and start crying. Because I'm sure that going from Curtis Joseph to Ed Belfour isn't going to make other teams feel better. Ed Belfour's still a pretty good goaltender at this point in his career. The Leafs did outscore the Ottawa Senators 14-11 in this series. The Game 7, again, the Leafs didn't really leave a whole lot to chance. They won it 4-1. When the games are important, they win them against the Ottawa Senators. Hossa had 3 goals and 1 assist in this 7-game series. Alfredson had a goal and 2 assists. And Radek Bonk, 2 assists. So Alfredson, 3 points, 10 points, 11, 15 points in 24 games against the Toronto Maple Leafs. Toronto knew how to keep Daniel Alfredson off the board. They knew how to keep Hossa off the board. Hossa, let's see, no points here. 2, 7, 11 points in 24 games. It was a frustrating matchup for the Ottawa Senators for that roster. On the Toronto side, Joe Nieuwendyk, who only played 6 games in that series out of the 7, 5 goals for Joe Nieuwendyk. McCabe, 3 goals and an assist, and Matt Sundin played 4 games. He had a goal and 3 assists. So a goal and 3 assists here, 2 goals, 2 assists here, 3 goals, 4 assists here. He played pretty well. And Ty Domi, a goal and an assist for Domi. And not only that, not only does Domi get a goal, it's a game winner that he scores in this series as well. So kudos to Ty for that one. And just think, if these teams had met every single year until now, Ty Domi by now would have had like 15 points in a 7-game series. Because gradually working his way up. 0 points, 1 point, 2 points. Would have kept going, but Domi decided, I'm going to retire rather than dominate the league offensively. 954 save percentage for Belfour here. 976 save percentage for Joseph. The way you view this, there's a few ways to view it. Toronto had the superior goaltending. I can't argue they didn't. But there was definitely some kind of a psychological break that the Ottawa Senators would have in those Game 7s. There was just some kind of psychological edge the Toronto Maple Leafs had over the Ottawa Senators that showed up every single time. And the one time they don't play during this period, Ottawa goes to the conference finals. Now, what's also interesting is, other than the Leafs having 7 shutouts out of their 16 wins over Ottawa, that Toronto lost every series after they eliminated Ottawa. So they would celebrate knocking out the Senators by getting knocked out themselves in the next round. So that's an interesting little tidbit from this as well, is that their celebration didn't last very long, but they still went further than the Ottawa Senators every year other than 2003 when they were sent packing in round 1 by the Philadelphia Flyers. So it's an interesting rivalry, and we can talk about the regular season now and how Ottawa gives Toronto trouble. The reality is, when you look at the playoff series, though, they didn't. And to this day, I'm convinced, and I know it's a whole new roster, it's a whole new day. If Toronto met Ottawa in the first round of the playoffs at any point, I will take Toronto. Because to me, Toronto just, there's something, whatever it was here, whether it was the goaltending, whether it was psychological on this side, Toronto's just a bad matchup for the Senators. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.